Welcome to the Marvel Alliance podcast, where we cover anything and everything to do with the Marvel Universe. In the comics, TV, and movies, we will go from Earth 616 to Mojoverse to Skrullos in order to bring the Marvel Universe right to you. I'm the man without fear, Chris.
I'm the podcaster of Mischief Trust now.
Alliance Assemble, Volume 171, and the original crew is back together once again.
Yes, luckily, after Brent shenanigans a few months ago with the whole Logan business, me and him can't do a podcast together at all. But it's good to be back. My hope was sometime in August to sneak on here when everyone's here, because I always want to, but I feel like the time someone's away, so I'm like, okay, I'll fill in. So I hope I'll do Brent somewhat justice and make up for his poor taste sometimes. So.
That's fine. You can give him a quiet ribs. He'll enjoy it when he listens to this tomorrow.
Exactly. Yeah, that's how it happens. That's how we communicate now. We don't even speak. We just hear on the podcast, and I go, "Oh, there's some shot taken at me. Great."
Yeah.
No.
Well, how's your week been?
It's been good. It's been busy, as we were talking about off air. I got a kid's birthday that we're preparing for, so that's a lot of juggling, family, and this is, I think, the first one with like a lot of actual like kids. Like before, we've had a couple friends, but this is the like, hey, 6 to 8 kids. So it's like it's at our place, 6 to 8 kids, family. So and there's just a busy stuff. Like I think you'll be seeing this too. Mission Impossible's next week, and there's just lots of stuff. Secret Invasion's happening. There's Barbie and Oppenheimer coming out. To plug our Geek for stuff, we got a superhero draft. So I've been trying to study and see who am I going to drop, who am I not going to drop. It's a big thing. I finally won this year after like 6 years. It was very embarrassing when we started thinking, I'm like, oh, these guys know nothing about actors, and I finally won. So
apparently, they've just fell into luck, right?
Oh, absolutely. But it's been a good week. We're same here. Also, we had Canada Day, so shorter work week for us. So not too bad. Well, you're not working all right now. So what am I talking about?
No, I am. I'm a 12 months. So we just only in the summer we just work 4-day weeks. So I've got Friday. I get 3-day weekends for the summer. So I'll take that. But yeah, 4th of July here, so short work week for me as well. But trying to hire up for the school year since we're starting early this year and at the beginning of August. So summer is quickly coming to an end. And but yeah, see Mission Impossible on Sunday afternoon. So got that really
earlier than me.
Earlier than everyone else.
Yeah. Hey, I'll take it. We here in Little Kelowna, we rarely get any screening. So it's like, okay, Monday, I'll happily take it. So
yeah, get that early review out, right?
Yeah.
So, but all right, well, we've got a new episode and some interesting news bits as well. So let's get the show plugs out of the way. We are part of the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network with 8 shows covering the wide range of geek and nerdom. To see the full schedule, check out the show notes below and subscribe to the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network on Twitter at GWayPod Network so you know when all the shows drop. We also have a Patreon, so if you want to throw a couple of shekels our way, we've got 2 tiers. We've got our $1 tiers, our tip jar to say, hey, you think we're doing a good job, and then we've got our $5 tier that gives you early access episodes, ad-free episodes, and Patreon-exclusive shows, including Brent's and my show, We Can Watch This All Day, the Marvel Alliance MCU Rewatch. 18 episodes are up there right now for the patrons to enjoy. We just dropped our recent one last week, Spider-Man Homecoming, and Brent and I are scheduled to record our next one next Monday. It's coming Monday night. We will be recording, looking at Doctor Strange, and quite fortuitous with all the recent rumors and back and forth with what's going on with Cumberbatch and what's going to be the focus of the third outing.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, thank you, patrons. I hope you're enjoying all that great content, and check out the DC Alliance guys looking at DC film through the years. We've got Joe looking at all the classic summer movies as well. Clay just dropped a episode looking at Marvel Snap and doing a long episode of that. So that was a nice surprise up there. So check out all that great content. But if you can't join us on Patreon, we totally understand. But if you can take 30 to 90 seconds to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, wherever those podcatchers you choose, we greatly appreciate it. And last but certainly not least, we want to thank our official sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com, for your omnibus hardcover collected edition needs. JP and the crew at OPB have got it going on with excellent customer service, immaculate packaging, ships around the world. You got some reprints of Omnis coming in. Spider-Man Ben Reilly, Volume 2, the conclusion of that illustrious arc. We've got
Fist. Look at that.
Yep, we've got Thor by JMS and Gillen, first time ever combining those two. We've got the ROM, very first time in omnibus form. Marvel's got the license back. Yes, Rom the Space Knight. Yes.
Wow, wasn't expecting to see that today on here.
No. Not many people thought that one. And then I think the next month you'll get Micronauts will be coming
Wow,
back as well. So yeah, Marvel got some licenses back from Hasbro. So, but
nice.
use that code MarvelGOA at checkout to get $2 off every single order. It lets them know you're a listener. And again, we want to thank them for being our official sponsor.
Mhm.
All right. So, and yes, Phil, as always, we got to make sure.
What has happened in this chat? I feel like I'm
Yes.
like I'm Captain America. You know, I win in the water, ice, and then I come back all the time. There's these hashtags, things going on. But I did see last week that someone was requesting me in Kirkland. So you didn't get Kirkland, but
Yeah. I
I'm
mean,
here. I'm here. I came to the call. Someone in there was like, "Got to get him back. Hurry!" You know. So
Exactly. And probably Kirkland was a little happy at that point. Someone was requesting him, you know?
yeah, well, it's good. Last night he got accused of being a beta male, and you know, last week people were requesting him. So
Yeah, exactly.
It's good.
But yes, as always, Phil, hashtag Madam Web is the blueprint. So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, we are now at the halfway point of Secret Invasion. 3 episodes in, and this one is entitled Betrayed. So, what are your kind of non-spoiler thoughts for this one, Travis?
Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. Like I said on Geek First, where the first episode I liked it enough, but last episode I loved. I don't know if I like this one more than that one, but I think it's continuing to ramp it up as far as, you know, the classic "Who can you trust?" But I think we're seeing a lot of good divisions between our characters to see, okay, what side are they working for? Who like the biggest thing, we'll get into spoilers too, is just even something, no, it's not simple, but even something like the relationship between Nick Fury and his wife. You have to triple guess what's going on there. You know, that's what I like, that almost every relationship, there's kind of a 3-dimensional dynamic to them all. It's not plain and simple, which is good. I think there were some good performances in here. I think it ended in a very interesting way, which I'm sure we'll talk about, and has people talking and buzzing about what could be going on and looking at trailers and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm really liking it. We're kind of getting some good. We knew it was coming. You guys talked about this last week with the Super Scrolls, but we're kind of in a non-spoiler way getting more sprinkles of that. So I like how we're coming about that. I love kind of the integration of that storyline, the comic book stuff, and it's great we can do this because a long time ago Marvel just owned the rights to Skrulls, so there was a chance at one point in the MCU we weren't ever going to get this. So
Yeah.
it's kind of fun. I am curious to see. As usual, I'm hoping it won't be rushed. I'm just curious now, once we start getting introduced to the Super Skrull idea, how can you wrap that up in a nice bow in 3 episodes? Or maybe not. Maybe there's a second season. Maybe this will go more in the MCU. So far, good questions, but I do wonder how that's going to happen now. We're at the halfway point where lots has happened, but there's still lots to unfold. But so far, I'm really liking it. I don't know where I'd rank it right now as far as my shows. I'm going to wait till that finishes, but I feel like it's a good dose of Marvel, and that's all you can ask for. So
Yeah, Phil in the chat saying series continues to impress at that point. Yeah, this one is definitely kind of a now setting up of the board now, a resetting up of the board after we got the first 2 episodes with some of their surprises and shockers and kind of like dealing with some of the ramifications and revelations from the last episode, especially looking at Fury and his wife, seeing exactly, like you said, looking at the development of Super Skrulls, what's Gravik's next move as well. I really, I think what the series has excelled in almost every single episode has been the moments between the quiet moments, the discussion moments between any of the cast at that point. Whenever you get those quiet moments, those discussion points, it's always with gravity and respect and just like calling out different things that us as fans like, yeah, they should have called that out. They should have, and I'll tell you what. This episode, Fury gets called out a lot. It's not like, oh, you're out of step, man. I don't know how many times we can say that Fury's out of step, but this one, I give it to Talos. He definitely called Fury out on some of his bull.
Yeah, and I think that's the one thing I've really liked, that we've kind of talked about this all the time, but especially with some of these later MCU movies where it's not publicly known, but a lot of these ones racking in at the 2-hour mark. We've been, okay, is there sort of an amendment that, hey, can we keep this 2 hours to be shorter? I think there's a few movies we've all said, maybe barring Guardians, I'd say lately, stuff like Doctor Strange, stuff like Thor: Love and Thunder, especially Thor: Love and Thunder, where it would have just been nice for even more moments for characters to sit and just take a minute. And that's where I think this show show does a good job of, as far as those conversations, sometimes in any kind of, I'd say like the bigger IP, Marvel, Star Wars, stuff like that, DC, when there's lots of action, lots of comic book stuff going on, they kind of just forget to let the characters, say that with the Flash too. Sometimes you just want to see the characters talk and interact. That's what I said about the Flash, where it's like, oh, even if I had a bit more of Keaton just interacting a little more, I don't need all that stuff. Because at the end of the day, I feel and it's been a conversation lately with superhero fatigue and stuff, but most people tune in these because, yeah, sure, there's comic books and action, but people tune in because they love the characters, right? And I think, especially with Talos, I don't know if he'd be like in a top 10, but this show has definitely helped kind of. I liked him in Captain Marvel, but even now, as far as ranking characters, he seems to be going up every week. Because again, I love kind of the dynamics and layers he's getting and what he could potentially get next week, depending on which ways go. So that's why I like it. Just takes a second to breathe.
But yeah, so any kind of non-spoiler remaining thoughts before we get into the spoiler part?
No, I think as usual, most people who listen to the show will probably watch it, but if not, I think now's a good time to jump in because I feel like now after 3 episodes, let's say you're waiting, I think after 3, if you were to watch them and be like, not for me, then you would know, okay, I give it a shot. But now I feel like it's kind of hitting its stride and finding its pacing. Not that it was bad, but like you said, they had to set some stuff up. So I think these next 3 weeks are not even going to be action packed, but just lots of developments, I'll say. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, definitely. So, all right. So if you haven't watched it, pause here unless you want to get spoiled because we're about to spoil in 3, 2, 1. So we open the episode looking at we're at Skrullos and we see kind of the new recruit that Amelia Clark's Gaia had rescued at that point. Looks like he's been now officially recruited into the warrior group, questioning the mission of the resistance. It's clear that Beto was not necessarily looking to be in the warrior class. He was probably just looking for a shelter, and now he's kind of been drafted into service. So
yeah, and that's what I like as well, where you have this war going on, right? Or the starts the war. We'll see what's going to happen. But the good thing is it's not, and we already knew this already with Talos and other people, but you see there's going to be, even if this guy doesn't divide, there's division as far as they thinking this is a safe haven or him thinking this is a safe haven to going there being, now you're kind of a soldier, right? And it kind of akens back to wars of the past where, people had to be enlisted and stuff like that. Right now, this section of Skrulls, some of them don't get that. They need everyone fighting. Everyone that's under Gravik right now, he doesn't need anyone just sitting around hanging out. They're not at that point. Every time you talk to the man, he is dead serious, and he mentions that we're at war, right? So I don't think, sure, you might get a Friday off or something.
I think he wants the sugar. That's what he really wants.
Well, yeah, maybe. And that's the thing where it's just everybody to be a part of this clan has to help and do their job. So maybe that might be something down the line, but I don't think they're going to get that route. I don't think these bad Skrulls are going to be successful per se. But like I said, I don't know how it's going to, maybe they will still be around. But I think that was a good showing as far as, okay, we get why they're fighting. We get why they feel like they've been oppressed. But at the same time, they're kind of maybe becoming something a bit too bad if everyone has to be a soldier, which I get if you're in a war, right? So again, lots of layers going on.
Yeah. So they basically take on the 3 personas of Royal Navy service officers, and they head out. We see them going to the British sub so that they can, we're assuming, going to either take over, do something on the sub that's going to start causing the war. Now, even though there's just a million Skrulls now somewhere all over Earth, there's still billions of humans. And so they have figured that even though there's just a million of them and there are billions of humans, the best way to exterminate the human race is to have us take each other out.
Yes. Very, very Zemo-esque. I can't beat the Avengers, but they can beat each other,
Yeah. And, humans warring with one another is our biggest weakness, and it's something that Gravik later talks about in Talos in the museum. He and his minions have been carrying out the attacks in the world while posing as rival groups in order to raise the tensions in key nations like Russia, the U.S., Great Britain, places like that will happily go to war with each other once this is in place, and they can just come in and claim and pick up all the pieces for themselves.
Yeah, it's interesting, and like I've said before, there is I like the layers that they have as far as with Fury and Talos, because there is definitely comparisons to Hydra and the Widows, right? Like we've seen this sort of done a little bit before, but they're trying to give it some new wrinkles, which I do appreciate, because I feel like with episode 1, it was a lot of, oh, we're a secret, we're in the shadows, which is okay. Again, we've been here a few times in the MCU, so you have to make it different. And I think more so the tone of this show is, because Winter Soldier had that. Black Widow, the Widows being there were, it was there, you know, it was something that they talked about. That wasn't the focus of that movie. The focus of that movie was Natasha and the family and stuff like that, where Winter Soldier definitely was. So it's more akin to that. And I do appreciate them trying to make some differences, because I don't want to always see, hey, we're a shadowy organization who's moving stuff. But I think this one too has, you know, with Hydra, it's Nazi, so we're not cheering for them. With the Widows, it's, you know, guy in power. With this one, which you guys talked about last week and I did as well, I think they've set the motives up well. These people, or, you know, this race feeling very ousted. So I like what we're doing here so far.
Yeah, and I love All in the Game saying one Skrull equals 0.0125 of Earth's population. Mm-hmm. So then we cut to Gravik in front of the machine that we got introduced to in the last episode, and he's invited the council members to see that he's found a way to give their people powers and make them, he named them, Super Skrulls.
I love that they just didn't even like, and I'm fine with it, but just didn't even, we're just gonna be Super Skrulls, you know, that's it. No beating around the bush.
Nope, not at all. And so people, I have to say this, I see on Twitter, see on Instagram, some people in the nerd community and geek community, which we count ourselves among, get a little angry about this and saying it's not like the comics. I just want to say this. Hey guys, come here real close. I want to tell you something. The Fantastic Four doesn't exist yet, so they can't have the same powers yet. So get upset all you want. This is where we're at with the powers they're going to be getting. And you know what? At this point, I'm here for it. I'm here for what they're trying to do with it. You know, the original Super Skrull was named Kl'rt, who was born on Tanik 4. And he was shunned due to the amount of times he lost against groups like the Fantastic Four. So they decided to get one better and found a way to get the powers of Fantastic Four, and Kl'rt was one of the first. You know, when in the MCU, the Skrulls lost their war against the Kree, and thus they've also had to find a way to match up against threats like the Avengers. So this seems like a natural thing for them to do. This is what Gravik was talking about in the last episode. He's got a plan. This is his plan if the Avengers were to come calling.
Yeah, and it's a few things where, like, you know, All in the Game says, yes, they are a small percentage, but eventually, you know, if Fury, other thing, if people keep talking, they become a bigger threat, they're going to go after that percentage, but it will help a lot more to have these powers, you know, because there's lots of superheroes, but what percentage of Earth, not counting Thor, I'm talking about people on Earth, have superpowers? Probably less than the Skrulls, right? So eventually, if we get Super Skrulls, they'll easily kill police and all these CIA agents, people like that. It's the heroes will have to step in, and that's why you got to get that. So I enjoy that. I think it's been this way the entire time, but really, I would say unless you just started watching the MCU, that's completely fine. But I'd say since 2016 Civil War, you can no longer use the why aren't they doing it like the comics? Because that, to me, was the biggest egregious, not in a bad way, but showing, hey, we're taking a storyline, Civil War, but we're just taking the kind of synopsis of it, and then we're going to fill in the plots, right? We're taking the cliff notes, and then our movie's going to be a new story. So once Civil War happened, for anyone to be like, why? Even Infinity War.
I'd say
Endgame,
Ultron
right?
was the biggest offender of that one.
Yeah, Ultron too. But like with Secret War or Civil War being such a big storyline, comic book wise, which I feel is very popular. But yes, of course, Ultron with Hank Pym, like there's lots of stuff there. I just feel like I'm surprised anyone complains about that now. You can say, hey, I like the comics version better. That's fine. But to say, why aren't they doing this? And the same thing, did anyone think they were going to debut the entire F4 in here? I certainly didn't. You know, like that's never an expectation I had, you know. Ross 1v1 against Super Skrull episode 6.
Job,
there we go. Yep. Can't wait. And we lose them again, you know. But that's the point where that is smart, because we talked about that last week, and you guys did too, where Fury says, okay, don't bring the Avengers because if they get captured, we're screwed. Okay, that checks a box. And the Skrulls being like, okay, we got to become Super Skrulls so we can be better. And I like the way that they're doing. Yeah, they're not taking their powers from S4, but they're taking their powers from other MCU people we've met, like Groot and Call. Like to me, they're making it make sense in the world, and that's the best part of it. It just makes sense instead of what would I want this show we finally got about Nick Fury to be like, okay, now all the Fantastic Four are here. Sure, if it was like Daredevil 18 episodes, but it's not. It's 6 episodes. So
Yeah.
This is what it is.
Exactly. Accept it or just hate on it and continue to claim controversy. So
yeah.
so
Or
you're gonna
don't
have
watch it and read the comic again if you like it so much better. It's
No
right
one will-
there.
no one will ever take it away from you.
Yeah.
So after the title sequence, we cut to another flashback in New York, this time a year later from the previous one in New York, 1998. And so Fury meets up with Vara, and she hands him some intel that could help him out against Dreykov. So, Black Widow opens in 1995 with the escape sequence. So this is still kind of in line where this could possibly be happening, that S.H.I.E.L.D.'s looking into Dreykov's activities with the Widows. In the comics, Gaia was someone who was a sleeper cell agent and built a family on Earth while carrying out missions. She and her agent husband, Klur, raised a family on the planet, and they were put into place to help keep tabs on everyone on Earth. So now we got Fury having people infiltrate the country now that he's investigating other people infiltrating him. So Fury and Vara are sweet on each other, and he questions why she's chosen that look. And can we get some toast put out a theory that Fury had a serious girlfriend, Priscilla, that he was going to marry. She developed cancer, and a Skrull, and the Skrull Vara wanted to be loved, and the suggestion was to take Priscilla's place in his life. Both Fury and Priscilla agreed to this, and when Priscilla died, Fury married Vara.
Okay, good. As long as Fury would have given the go-ahead. I think that would have been very strange if your wife passes away and then 2 weeks later this Skrull shows, hey, I'm going to pose as your wife now, which I wouldn't mind that theory because at Geekverse we keep talking about, and I don't know if you guys have, I don't remember you guys talking about that, like whatever happened to the original Ben Mendelsohn character, right? Because in Captain Marvel, he took, and it's like, so what, is that a similar situation where that guy passed away? That's what I'm going to headcanon myself now, because if not, there's 2 of them, but
just wandering around.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I'm glad we got this scene because last week I had read that same thing you did about the writer saying that they put it on the page, but not on the screen. So I was like, does that mean they might never answer this? And I was like, I don't want that. I feel like leaving that ambiguous the whole time for the scene was great, but for the whole time wouldn't work. And I like this dynamic of Nick Fury. He's married to a Skrull. He knows it's a Skrull, and there's lots to it. Like last week when he was talking about that Skrulls and humans could never live together. It's like, well, you're married to one, so shouldn't you kind of want that to be a goal, like Talos is? Like, wouldn't you want that to be some sort of revolution that you could potentially pull off? And obviously, he doesn't think that it could. But this was a fun little scene. I think they had we had a week of de-aging last week with Indy. I think this is a good one with Nick Fury. They kind of have those assets already because I think Nick Fury and Captain Marvel is one of the better ones. If you were to make a list of the top 3 to 5 of de-aging, Nick Fury's always look good. So I think this was I like that we got the answer, and it was a good flashback to establish how they met. And I like them kind of flirting back and forth of, oh, I can't really date anyone in an operation. She's like, well, I'm not exactly under your purview and stuff like that. It's almost this kind of, don't eat where you work sort of situation, So I liked the scene in general, and I know we'll get more into it too. I have no problem because I've seen a debate of like, oh, does it lessen Nick Fury's impact that he had a bunch of Skrulls over the world, like giving him information? Like, no, that's like Nick Fury 101. If he had the capability to have Skrulls give him information, he would do that. And is it kind of shitty? Yeah, but that's Nick Fury,
Yeah, and I can still tell, like, Vara really does care and love Fury, but she likes, like the others, brings up the blip that changed him again, but she mourned him after he was snapped, and then he returns and doesn't even stick around, barely there to volunteer to lead up Saber. He may say he's quote unquote retired and is going after revenge, but I think they have a very, very interesting relationship that I think that is going to be further explored in these episodes, and what kind of dynamic they really are. But I don't think it's one that they both do love each other. It's just in their own way.
Yeah, and I think this is something with Fury, it fits a lot where, and funny enough, he kind of played a character like this in Kong Skull Island. But this is a real situation where, okay, in MCU, he went missing for 5 years. He pretty much left right away, left her again, went up to Saber, and they've been, so really, because how much, we still don't know the whole time he's been up there, right?
We've heard years.
Yeah.
We just don't know how long.
Yeah, and we don't know the official MCU date right now, right? It's
David's still in the chat. He did say that the other week. I can't remember though. So
because it's supposed to be like 2028.
Yeah, that's what I think
Yeah,
I think we said 2028. Yeah,
which is still, I'm with Brent. I still don't understand the years part, because if it's 2028, that's, well, actually no. I guess what, 2019 was 5 years later. It's like, oh, it's 2024, and then it's okay. So it's so yeah, you could say he's been on off space for 4 years. Mm-hmm. So really, there's a chance that you put those years together for almost a decade. They haven't seen each other that much. For almost a decade. That's always the debate at the time. We need a timeline thing, but even then, even though it's 5-6 years, like she made the point, and it's a great point as far as you were gone for 5 years. I had to mourn you. I got you back, and I kind of had to mourn you again in a sense. And this is a thing that happens in real life. It still happens now. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing or good thing for. Oh, go ahead.
It says She-Hulk was confirmed to end in 2025 in the timeline, meaning Secret Invasion will take place in 2025 in MCU canon.
So, and that's the thing that to me doesn't line up, because if it was years, everyone came back in 24, right? Because it's 5 years since 2019, or is it 2018, I guess, right? Yeah, because the snap happened technically in 2018. So 2023, so okay, maybe 2 years. I count that as 2 years and stuff like that. So even then.
But I just don't like the statement when they say, like, you've been years up there. Years, I think, is more than 2.
I agree with you. It's definitely like a stretching of it, but still, you can look at this, go for 7 years. They've pretty much maybe only seen each other a handful of times, you know? And what I was trying to get to is this happens in real life. This works for some people, doesn't work for other people, but that is a clinical, real thing that a lot of times people, when they get back from war, they can't get back to regular life, and they're more comfortable in war. Or lots of people that go to prison suffer from the same thing, where because they're away from the human world for so long, like they can't sleep in their own beds. And that's what I think they're trying to get across with Fury, that he got back and he missed 5 years. And you think that clearly, like you said, I think they do love each other, even if he's not going to be there all the time. You'd think he'd want to spend a couple months with his wife, a little bit just catching up. He almost lost his life for 5 years, but no, Theory's right back to the grind. So that's where I feel like he's kind of has that soldier syndrome of, he's just got to be in the fight. Nick Fury is a character to me that whenever they're done with him can't be like Clint Barton, who can retire and go with his family. I think Nick Fury is a character that has to die, because he couldn't sit back. He can't wait. So
yeah, so let's take our first ad break, because this next kind of sequence with Gravik and Gaia, and then Gravik and Talos, is going to be kind of probably a big stirring moment for the episode itself. So as you know, listeners, these ads help keep the lights on the Geek Ultimate Alliance network. We don't get to choose what ads come on, and they can be a bit loud. Give it that 3 count before they come on. 3, 2, 1. We'll be right back. And we are back. All right, so we cut to Gravik waking up Gaia and kind of questioning her on how did the cops show up to their safe house when Brogan, the now dead interrogated Skrull, didn't really know that information. And Gaia basically kind of says, well, he may have not known, but under torture, he may have made an educated guess where you could be. And it's very easily told that Gravik like doesn't buy it, but doesn't press. So instead, he wants to kind of, what I'll say is, play with his food and just kind of really see if he can catch her in an outright lie. Mm-hmm. And so he tells her, "You're coming with me to London," and tells her that her dad has issued a parlay to talk about you. And during the car ride, he picks up the phone and says that there's going to be the Neptune is going to be in 2200 hours, going to do the next kind of action step at that point. Mm-hmm. And it's just at that moment, I've seen too many of these spy and espionage thrillers based on what the previous scene was. It's like, yeah, this is the test. And if it's not real, it's meant to see if this information gets back to Talos.
Like you said, it is kind of Spy 101, that the second, why, if that character was questioning another character, would he give them very important information in the
Hmm.
same episode, but that's why it was a big test, and obviously that is the reveal later on, which we'll get to. But yeah, no, he same thing. I like that we got. I'm not trying to jump ahead. I like
No,
that we
you're fine.
got certain answers about her that we kind of went back to the past 2 weeks. I was like, you guys was like, okay, I'm pretty sure that she is with our heroes, but you never know, right? That happens all the time in these shows. But yeah, unfortunately for me, while I was watching, I was like, man, Gravik is Gravik's pulling one right now.
Especially, yeah, when we get to him going to the National Portrait Gallery, they basically, Talos and Gravik kind of have a series of war words with each other. You know, Talos goes there alone, but Gravik comes there with Skrulls watching over him. They start talking in front of a painting called The Statesman of World War One, where Gravik says it's fascinating that these statesmen just sit there and debate and pose for pictures while the conflict is fought by young soldiers to
Mm-hmm.
die for the cause. And similar to Nick Fury being the older man sending the Skrulls to spy for him.
Yep.
And, you know, they
And
sit
lots of
down.
allegories to real life too, and like even
Yep.
real world wars, right? The wars were started between leaders of certain worlds, but they weren't the ones that fought them, right? It was everyone else that had to be out on the front lines and give their life and stuff like that. So lots of parallels to lots of situations.
Oh, very much. So they sit down in the cafeteria, and Gravik filling his his espresso with sugar. And I like the comment saying, "I like a little like some
Mm.
espresso in my sugar." You know, it's a great scene, great jabs against each other. Gravik tells Talos that he failed them as a leader, and he's not going to be hard to believe that the council selected him as general. Talos says Gravik's plan is to take their people to the edge of extinction with a war with the humans, but Gravik says all humans know is murder. And Gravik trying to put the Skrulls higher up than the humans, you just sorry, but you're basically kind of going down the level of quote unquote the people you hate with the humans. You're doing similar actions, so you really can't put yourself on a higher pedestal.
You live, you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. But
Yep.
yeah, that's a situation, right? Where and I kind of get it too that he's saying from these whole 3 episodes, they're saying, okay, over these 30 years, roughly, it's 30 years that
Yeah.
we've been here watching the humans. This is what they are, but it is becoming the thing you hate. But at the same time, in his point of view, you kind of have to become that if you want to defeat them because you're just going to always be put back. So it is something, yeah, he's. I don't even think he's not seeing it. I think it's just this thing of he feels that humans kill and are bad to each other regardless, where we're doing it because we have a point and we want to make things better and stuff like that. But really, again, not the way you want to go about things.
Yeah, I do definitely agree with Phil here. Gravik's overestimation will be his downfall, and his growing paranoia around everyone is going to be his downfall as well.
Do you think he is defeated in this series, meaning like done with, like we never see Gravity again when we get to the finale? Like, is he killed or something, or do you think he could be imprisoned?
I'm expecting him to be killed. I don't necessarily want him to be killed. I want him to be captured and then be one of, Miss Val. Don't call her Val. Don't even think it at that point. Be a
Oh
pawn and
yeah.
be a pawn for her to use as well.
I think for me, it all depends on what when we get to the end of this episode. If what was real there is real, then I don't think Gravik's going to be around too much longer because I
Yeah,
think someone else will deliver a cold fate to him. So
that's true. Tal says if Gravik doesn't stop while he's ahead, the heads of state, he's gonna go telling everyone about what's going on at that point. And Gravik says he'll have signed the Skrull's death warrant, but Talos says he will, you know, that they will not see all Skrulls are like Gravik, which I think is a little short-sighted depending on
yeah,
what the humans are going to be. But also Talos says that humans will put up, when put up against the wall, will always put their differences aside and come against a common enemy. We are the most formidable. They are the most formidable when they are threatened, and that's basically kind of how the Avengers were formed.
yeah. Except Baron Zemo destroyed the ball, so there's some flag there. But yeah, no, that's kind of the whole thing, right? Like Watchmen did that with aliens. I think that was a very similar. Like you look at again, I feel like that's a very allegory to 9/11, which other than a few countries, that was a thing, right? When that happened, the entire world looked at one thing's like, okay, we got to deal with that. So that is to me, it is a pretty true statement. I'm having some fun because Zemo did like they were together until he found a way to split them up, and they weren't apart. But that was a whole different scenario. But yeah, it's Talos was trying his best to plead to him here, but it's not. He's far past that.
Yeah,
So.
and Gravik continued to poke him with mentioning Gaia and things like that. He first kind of goes up to him and stands up when he mentions Gaia, and then everyone, we saw that scene in the trailer. It's just
Yeah.
great seeing it on the big screen now, and just seeing everyone transform, and him just looking around, just seeing like it's not just representation of the scrolls surrounding him, but like these scrolls are on Gravik's side. Like he can't do anything without them striking back. And even when he stabs him in the hand, they get up, but they don't really do anything and necessarily walks away. But then we get the revelation after he takes the knife out of him. He's got Extremis, so
He's got
he is
Extremis,
our.
yeah.
He's got he's our first example of a super scroll.
And luckily, other than like Aldrich Killian, Mandarin, and Fake Mandarin, like around that time, people did have Extremis, but it was very kind of still experimental. We saw many people that still weren't containing, or if they would just like explode at times and stuff like that. So whether it's a scroll or whether it's just been more refined over the years, I like that this is almost like what Extremis could have fully been, right? Like he's just using it. And again, this is stuff where I know people, if they want F4, sure. But for me as an MCU fan, this was really cool because I did not see Extremis coming back in any sort of form other than a mention anytime soon. And I like that, okay, we have a villain that now actively could be using as a power. I think that's a ton of fun and a good callback. And it makes sense for our world that we're in, right? So...
yeah, and I think Tony was able to, kind of offset, like, improved Extremis to the point where it was like that. Because we did see an Extremis warrior in Shang-Chi that was able to control their powers
right?
as well.
Yeah. I forgot in the fighting arena, everything like that, right? Yeah.
So, but yeah, so as Talos walks off, he bumps into an older guy who says he dropped his phone when it's really Gaia posing at them to give him a burner phone to let him know where the next attack is going to be. And Fury meets up with Talos in a diner, and they kind of make up, but Fury says he's got a lead on a Skrull who's a higher up in the U.S. government, and this is where that higher up in the government, he knows who it is, and we know who it is by the end of this episode. He's calling out Rhodey.
Yeah, it's interesting from this. We kind of know that, right? Because it's one of these things that I don't think, even when he said it, I know we get the reveal, I wasn't like, well, who's he talking to, right? We still are, because I was still on your bandwagon that we still got a question mark by the president right now. So I'm very interested to see, do they get unelected just because they had Skrulls around them and didn't know, or is the president still Skrull? So we had that meeting last week, and we have, the reveal at the end of this episode, which is not the president. So, and you have Dermot Mulroney, who's like an actual actor. So I'm very surprised that so far on this show, he's been in one scene and that's it. So I feel like that has to play somewhere. But yes, that was a good foreshadow to what we get revealed later.
Yeah, and him and Talos have this kind of makeup, and Talos makes him say like, "Help me, Talos, because I'm useless without you." And continue to bring out the point that he can't get in certain areas without Talos's help.
Yeah.
And we get revealed that the Neptune is a sub trying to start a nuclear war, and he calls Sonya for assistance when she tells him she's found the bug. And I love the little eye patch she puts over the bug and says, "I'm going to call it Nick Fury now." And she says she can't divert attention because, like you said, she's found a mole in her organization. Tony Curran tipped off Gravik. Now, she does give him the location of the Commodore Robert Fairbanks, who is over the Naval Command at that point. And so on the way, Talos talks about his lack of understanding of why humans take care of dogs, which Fury says he's been cleaning up picking up his poop for 30 years. And Talos takes offense to that. He says, like, you're rewriting history. How many times, because of our intel, what we could do for you and the stuff, you got promoted up? Like, without us, you do not rise to the rank and position that you were able to occupy. And he says, I never asked for thanks. All I would have liked is an acknowledgement that we did this, and don't try to rewrite history with me just sitting right next to you. And he's right.
He is right. And it's very funny where, obviously we got a lot of mention about Nick Fury's changed and stuff like that, right? In the couple episodes. But in the first episode, it felt like he was down and out and very almost... like, of course he's sympathetic because he's one of our heroes, but lots of times Nick Fury is an asshole, right? And it's hard to cheer for him, stuff like that. This episode, between the conversation he had with his wife and what we learned there, and basically just up and leaving because, like, I gotta go fight the good fight. And now this, where it seems like, again, he's I feel like we kind of all thought that last week. That speech about the Skrulls felt very almost dictatorship in a way. It did not feel like there was much for them. I get it. The idea was to give them a planet. Gosh, like I don't think it's going to go this route, but with Nick Fury, I wouldn't be surprised they reveal that Nick Fury was never actually really looking for a planet, because we've seen stuff like that in comics all the time where he's done something, but he's doing it for the better of the world or the better for people that he thought could save or help more people. And this is the thing too, where now he, has this illustrious history and reputation. I'm sure not all that is the Skrulls doing and stuff like that. It doesn't sound like the Skrulls were a part of putting the Avengers together, like Talos never talked about that, but it's still one of these things where, okay, and I like that from a character standpoint where he's being a bit too high for his bridges when he shouldn't be, because there are other people that helped him, or races, however you want to say, that got him to that point. But Fury is a very, I won't say a god complex, but he is very he's very headstrong. He's very bullheaded. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, and I'm not saying I don't want to Nick Fury obviously smart
he did
enough.
Nothing.
Yeah, he couldn't do anything without the Skrulls. I mean, they're right to an extent, but also Fury's a one to also gain access to other things on his nature. But yeah, the Skrulls are very much responsible for helping him along and getting as high up as he did. So when they do arrive at Fairbanks, Talos tries to take on Fairbanks' personality. And the first time I saw this, I gave a really big laugh when he's immediately found out at one point, "Sir, I just left you." And my cover is blown. And Fury goes, "No shit, of course it is." Big surprise.
Yeah. And good, because we got that later on, but this is, I don't need this for everything, but I like the type of humor we get in this show that is a little more spaced out and it's not that based. That's what I wish the MCU would do more, because I think sometimes they do have projects where I go, there's maybe what you guys felt like you had to punch it up one too many times. And I do appreciate this show has been a bit more serious, because they are dealing with serious, like in that conversation that Fury and Talos, which was fantastic. I wouldn't want too much humor in there. So.
No, not at all. So as Fury takes out some of the guards, they're revealed to be Skrulls, because as soon as they die, they change over at that point. And so when we find out that Talos calls over to Fury on the radio and calls him Nick, so he knows he's not Talos. So he uses Fairbanks' son as a bargaining chip to get him to release Talos. Yeah. So I know our you all over at Geekverse.
No, they're not my friends.
They're not your friends. So they were debating, whether the son is a Skrull or not, and it is a good question to ask. Because obviously Fairbanks was really not wanting him to be harmed.
Yeah, I think it's a situation though where we've seen Skrulls on Gravik's side already. Not all of them are as gung-ho as Gravik, right? Of we're going to kill all these humans, we're going to take over. There is some mixed feelings and stuff like that. And even then, too, I think that's in all situations, even in war, when it comes to children, because it's not like this child, whether it's a human or a Skrull, they've not made their choice, right? That's why kids usually in all media and in real life shouldn't be harmed or whatnot, because it's like, well, they didn't choose to be here. It might have been their guardians or their parents, whoever's looking at them made poor choices, but they should not have to suffer because of the choices. So whether that's he is a Skrull, and the Skrull saying, "Hey, I put him in this situation, don't harm him," or he is just an innocent human kid that isn't biologically related to him, say, "Hey, don't hurt him because he has nothing to do with this." Either way, I think it works, but I took it as it's still he's taken over the dad, and the Skrull, the kid is still a human. So.
Mm-hmm. On the game saying part of the cons of the quote-unquote cons of the large connected universe is that I know there's an uninhabited garden planet out there that Thanos used to live on. Yeah, I mean.
Maybe they just haven't had the idea. They've been busy, We don't know after Endgame what it's interesting, right? Because that could be part of it, and I still think of the thing we talked about in Geekverse where that would be a perfect place for them to go, but. Who knows what happened at this point if Fury went right up to Saber, because Fury wasn't around for the killing of Thanos, right? And again, I don't even know, I feel like obviously we'll talk about Rhodey in a second, but I feel like another point that's been with Fury is, sure, maybe he was in Saber, this and that, but he's not the guy anymore like he was before Snap, right? Because he was gone for 5 years. He's not, before it was the buck stopped with him. Now there's a whole bunch of things, even the stuff that was happening with
I hear he's lost a step a little bit. Did you hear
He's
that?
lost a step. I think he's changed since the Snap, but even in Westview when all that was going down, that was Saber, but Fury had like really, it sounded like he had nothing to do with it. It just sounds like at one point he was the boss of whatever organization he'd be a part of, and now he's just one of the managers, which is still a powerful role, but there's a whole line of people that could be above Fury that can override him, and he just doesn't have the clout anymore. But I agree that I think that probably will end up being the plan. If not, if they just get some other random planet, that'd be very strange. But you know, yeah, Tony died. Nolan Gay says after the funeral, it's tough. Tony died. Who knows? Maybe she went off somewhere and stuff like that. That's the same kind of headcanon you have to do as why is X Avenger not here? I still think they might get to that point, but who knows? Maybe that planet is something wrong with it. Maybe it's not inhabitable for this type of Skrull.
It's got Krees on it.
You got Krees on it. Yeah. They're gardeners there. Yeah.
Yeah. So when they basically find out that the Neptune has gotten the orders from the Skrull Fairbanks to shoot down a UN plane in order to starting this kind of war going on. And it's interesting, even on the sub, you got the Skrulls that are at the key to do it, and then one of the other people who are the Skrulls saying, I'm not sure this should be happening. It's like, we got it from command. You don't follow it, you're going to be relieved. And so Fairbanks is loyal to Gravik, and Fury and Talos unsuccessfully try to get him to give up the code word for launch. And Talos kills Fairbanks when he taunts him about Gaia. You know, that's apparently don't ever... Talos is trying to prove himself at that point, so he calls Gaia to see what the real Fairbanks memories are. And she basically tells him, based off of what she's seeing in the memories, basically making an educated guess that it's Zachary, his son's name. And when she's down there, we see the other members of the Skrull Council and the scientists working on the Super Skrulls are there. So we know that they've been taken over as well. And Gaia flees out of there, and then she runs into Gravik, and escaping, she's trying to saying we got to extract the Skrulls that were on the sub since the mission failed. And Gravik says, no, the mission didn't fail. It did exactly what it needed to root out the traitor, and then shoots her right there, and then she transforms back into a Skrull. Now, I'm sorry. This is what happens when we watch trailers. We know Gaia is 99% somehow survives this.
Do we though?
I'm going off of the trailers that there are sequences with her and Priscilla back to back actions. There's a scene after the convoy is attacked that we haven't seen yet that she's crying over a body. So I'm not convinced, not at all, that she's dead.
I agree with you for the most part. An interesting theory that I found floated around is what if the person that Gaia was posing as is in the ones in those trailers? Like, because remember those rumors about her being Abigail Brand at one point, and those kind of went away. What if that's the case, where that character comes out and stuff like that? A shadowy figure emerges from a dim light forest.
Yes.
We should. It's Maria Hill. Yeah, we should ask ChatGPT.
We'll learn a lot about Maria Hill's life. Remember, she said we're going to learn a lot about her past.
The most in depth this character's ever been. So either way, I agree with you that Emilia Clarke is still in this show. Whether it's Gaia is still somehow alive, of she gets shot and just walks away, which I hope that's not the case, but because to me so far what they've showed Gravik is he is he set up this whole plan, right? He pulled up the bombing, he set up this whole plan not to do bombing, just to figure out Gaia. To me, for Gravik to shoot her and then walk away and not headshot her does not, to me, mash at all. So that's one of those kind of the way I was just talking about all in the game, where it's like, oh, how the planet thing. Okay, I can handle with that. Like, oh, they haven't talked about the planet, things happen, whatever. If it's a situation where a guy just gets up and, you know, she calls her dad, like, I've been shot, that's where it's like, all right, that doesn't explain it to me. So I kind of like the theory. Who knows? Because I don't know if she would have the personal connections to help out, but I do really like that.
Gravik becomes an idiot in the last 3 it's basically starting to become like that.
It happens sometimes with these villains, right? Where they make them posing and then they don't. And I think for me, I would actually really like that theory of somehow the person she was posing as breaks out. And we see that, and that's because I think that'd be really good. And I think that's the problem that I listen to my guys on Geek First. I listen to other people too, as far as that's where this death, or AKA the second fridging of the season, doesn't work, because it's that thing where it's like, I think none of us buy it. And now that none of us buy it, we need to see how it's done. And that's where I think they could stumble a little bit next week as far as the reveal of what's going on. I think if it's the other one, that's very clever. If it would have been a situation where he shot her and they cut to black before something else happens more, then you could be like, oh, there's a save, this and that. But if it's just she crawled away in the woods somewhere, to me, I've lost a lot of believability in Gravik, and I'm like, this is a guy that could get knocked off this season pretty easily because he couldn't even like confirm his kill, you know?
Well, especially, that, when she transforms, he could definitely tell if it doesn't look like Gaia in Skrull form because he's obviously seen her in Skrull form. So it's one of those, it's just like, I like I said, for those that didn't see the trailers, there's more to it at that point. But we'll have to wait and see until next week. We get to Vara, who is heading out to head to a safety deposit box, and she pulls out a gun inside, and then she gets a call on her phone, and there's a voice on the other end of the phone, and it's Rhodey. She's like, I want to speak with Gravik. He's like, nope, you get to deal with me, and hangs up the phone. Tells her exactly where she is going to go. And so this has been the theory for a little bit, even before the show, about Rhodey being a Skrull. So the question I think we're all now waiting for is, when did that takeover happen?
Even though technically it's not a whole 100% confirmation, right? Like, I think it is, but like technically there's still like there's still until we see him switch, there's still a chance that what's his name, Rhodes last week said that he had known about the Skrulls. I think I'm just completely playing devil's advocate here that, maybe there's a chance that the real Rhodes was working with one of these people and it went bad, whatever it may be. I do think it is just a Skrull. I think this was the reveal, but you never know. That could be some sort of fake out they try to do, right? This is what they try to make you think, that you hear Rhodes' voice and you think, oh, he must be a Skrull. Because I wonder that as a reveal, I think it's fun that we got that, but I was like, that's a strange way to do the Skrull reveal. Like, I would have preferred them meeting in person. She gets in a car, someone opens the door, and it's him. It was odd for me for them to do it on the phone. So again, yes, you asked me, I think he is a Skrull, but I still think there's like a 0.1% chance he's not, because until we see the switcheroo. Yeah. You never know, and it could be a classic red herring and stuff like that. But if it is, the win, I don't know. I think for me, the win of what I wanted is after Endgame, at least for me. I've said this last week, where I will be disappointed with Falcon Winter Soldier if we learn that was not Rhodey, because I think him and Sam had such a great conversation about what does it mean to be a black man holding the shield. Yet at the same time, maybe that's how a Skrull is relating with Sam, right? Another person that was at one point there, people were oppressed, they were held down, so you can try and get those parallels. But for me, a key thing is I don't want to learn, and some people might not like, or might be fine because they love the Skrull switcheroo. If I learn that like Rhodey at Stark's funeral is not the same Rhodey, that'll be a little bit of a disappointment for me. I can take Fear. Well, we don't know about Fear. We don't know the timeline of him and Talos switching. But if Rhodey's not the real Rhodey for Stark's funeral, that kind of sucks for me. So I'd love, like, next week if it were to open 2019, or what is it, 2023. Maybe they get him right after that funeral. He's down and out. Yep. He opens his car and boom, they get him, So, and the other thing is this could make sense too, because maybe they don't have access to everything. We haven't seen Rhodes in the War Machine suit since Endgame, right?
Yeah, we're not going to see him in this. I think they've been very specific in the show that we're not going to see anyone in costume.
But I'm saying is maybe the reason we haven't is because maybe the Skrulls don't have access to that tech. They don't know where it is. Maybe it'd be a thing that if they go to use it, the suit will right away be like, hey, you don't match the DNA of Rhodes. So that's what I'm saying is like, that could track as far as since Endgame, we haven't seen him in the suit. Maybe there's a reason why, because those Skrulls can't use that suit. So
it'll definitely track too in how they're kind of homaging the comics, because the Secret Invasion really took off because of House of M. And and the Civil War in House of M, where they were able to capitalize on the heroes being at war with each other, what happened with the mutants at that point. This tracks in the sense of they really came down during the blip and really took hold during the chaos after the blip ended and after Endgame. That would really, as their tip of the hat to the source material.
Because everyone's looking up, right? Everyone's looking at the thing. And like, I wonder too, I don't think this is a situation, but I wonder would there be a situation where any Skrulls, like let's say someone was blipped and they just took that person's identity of them being blipped, like that's a way and then when that person comes back, that could be an issue, but maybe those are some people in the brain control thing, maybe they get killed because Gravik kills them. So like that between the blip people coming back and also just everyone, even though Thanos was dead, still everyone's looking up. They're not looking at the Earth. They're looking at, hey, what could be next? And I guarantee you, the same way we have conspiracy theories, how many people are probably like, is Thanos really dead? Like, I guarantee you that whole time, is Thanos really dead? Did Thor really kill him?
He was right.
Yeah, I guess there's some people that think that, but that's the thing where it is to me the perfect time after Endgame to kind of take over. So I'll be excited if we can kind of get a whole flashback like we did here, and it makes, which we're going to talk about later, Armor Wars a little bit interesting. But again, you don't know, still could be a red herring. And the last thing I want to mention here too that I really liked was Talos had to kill one of his own, which he did not want to in episode 1. Remember, he made a big deal with that with Nick Fury of, hey, like, don't do that. Like, well, that's going to be like, he didn't even have that as a last resort. Like, that's not a thing. And then when he killed him, he was very upset with him and disappointed. And even when he killed the guy in this episode, he did not, like, it wasn't joyful. It wasn't like, oh, he's a badass. He looked like he had regret, and he called him, like just give me the codes. Like, it was for him, like, a last resort. He really didn't want to do it. So just some good care, like some characterization carried over from episode 1 of him not wanting to hurt his own people, even though they are on opposing sides. So
yeah, it's definitely, again, each episode we're getting a lot of character growth throughout. I think even though she wasn't in a lot of this, I'm still a fan of Olivia Colman as Sonya. I think we're going to see some more out of her, and I love seeing how much of a committed person, like Fury said in episode 1, she'll burn everything down in order to protect her little island. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I hope we do get a little bit more of her. I could see her as a character that might be carrying on in other MCU stuff, so maybe that's what they're saving for. But again, we don't know how the show's ending, so maybe there's room for more.
Yep. But all right, well, we will check it out next week with episode 4, and let us take our next ad break before we get into our little tidbits of news. So again, listeners, these ads help keep the lights on the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network. We don't get to choose what ads come on, and they can be a bit loud. Give it that 3 count before they come on. 3, 2, 1. We'll be right back. And we are back. All right, so not much more news than last week, but a few things we can chew on for a little bit. This one is coming from JW3 Speaker Series show that Benedict Cumberbatch announces his return for an upcoming MCU movie. So speaking as a guest on that show, confirmed that he will return as Doctor Strange much sooner than some people realized. He said, he was asked about what kind of upcoming projects does he have. He says there are some Marvel capers in the making next year where I will return. It's possible that he's likely referring to the Kang Dynasty, but that movie's been recently delayed, so it may not be necessarily that anymore. Aside from that, in Doctor Strange 3, where else do you think he could appear?
Well, and that's the funny thing that some people were taking as like, what project is he in next year? And I didn't take it as like I've seen both ways of, he's in something next year and he's filming something next year. I took it as he's filming something next year, but yeah. Excuse me. I think that's very much up to the date because we've had literally last week being like, hey, the strike's looking good for the actors. Doesn't look like we're extending the deal, to Deadline today posting a thing like, looking like the strike's going to happen. So it feels like the strike actors wise, every day is going back and forth. I think it's just more of a who they ask. I feel like some people are very heavy strike and some people are not wanting to. So obviously if they strike, that's not going to be a thing. So like, and that, because what the original date was 2000, now it's 2026 now for Kang. Now it is, right? Mm-hmm. So even then, like, would they be like, do you think they would be filming, let's say no strike happens, would they be filming Kang Dynasty next year? Because I wouldn't think so. I thought that'd be more 2025-ish.
Yeah, I don't see, if they're going to film at all with anything with Kang Dynasty, we're looking at late next year just to begin.
I agree. So that's where maybe he counts that. So maybe that's the thing, and it could be a long shoot, right? And I think that he is going to be, just like Infinity War, have a bigger character role, taking out Spider-Man, because he is Sony owned right now as far as movie-wise. his film was the biggest of the last two phases, right? Doctor Strange. So he is kind of he's money wise, he is the Iron Man of the multiverse saga. He is the face of it right now. We keep hearing about Strange 3, but you would feel like we would have heard about a writer and director. They're definitely working on it because there's been too many scoopers that have said things today and in the past few weeks for it not to be happening. I think it's just that. And it's smart, too, that you could delay it a little bit. So other than that, and I saw one of the scoopers kind of shoot down Blade as like an option. So it's like, really, if Secret or Kang Dynasty is not next year, and if Blade actually happens, it's apparently not that. I start looking at all these other movies. I really don't have a spot, so that's why I think that maybe it might just be an extended end credit or something like that. But would he refer to that in an interview as
No.
filming? I don't know, right?
When you say you're filming something, I consider it, if it's even a cameo, it'd be something a little significant than just a end credit scene. I think they want to keep that to the all in the game saying Agatha cameo. No, I don't think an Agatha cameo
and
for
that's
that.
filming right now.
That's
so that's
done.
where it's
Well,
that's
done.
Yeah.
So Fantastic Four may be an option at that point once we actually nail down a cast. So
Driver, he's coming back.
yeah. Amara Daniel saying, when does What If Season 2 come out? Could it be him reprising his role, Doctor Strange? That is, we don't have an official date. I think we're still scheduled that for sometime late this year.
And the same way as you take that cameo, like filming wouldn't mean like just an end credit scene. I don't know if I would count the What If either, because I feel like that's probably, maybe I'm being lowballing it, but because the episodes are so short and lots of times there's not lots of dialogue, I could have seen his episode of what I could say a couple days tops, because I forgot he is in other episodes of What If, so maybe that. But to film his episode, a 22-minute episode, that's a day's work and stuff like that. And I was just pulling up this calendar again. I was seeing like right now because next year we got Thunderbolts, and maybe he's filming some for that. I don't think that, but he got Thunderbolts, Cap, and Deadpool. And then right now you have Fantastic Four, Kang Dynasty, an untitled Marvel movie scheduled for November 7th in 2025. So I'm not trying to give people hopes. I really think he is just talking about Doctor Strange 3. And I do think they are. It's one of those things too that we heard other rumors that they were going back and forth between bringing Raimi or Derrickson back, and I don't think Derrickson's coming back. I really don't, because I think Derrickson left because he didn't want to do the whole connected universe thing, and I feel like Doctor 3 is going to be more of that.
Listen to our Patreon episode. I got some interesting stuff about Derrickson says about what he wanted to do versus what happened.
Well, yeah, and I feel like I know, even like it was a couple of weeks ago that Snyder had floated out that Raimi would do Secret Wars. I don't think that'll happen. I think Raimi will be back for 3, though. I think that it seemed like he had a good experience. People can say the movie's mixed. To me, that's not a mixed movie. A movie that had a good cinema score, was rated, or I guess it was an all right cinema score. But as far as Rotten Tomatoes audience and critics did well, and it made $900 million. Doesn't matter. That's the proof is in the pudding there that people liked it. And I think November, honestly, because right now, what is it? It's Kang Dynasty. Oh, that's an old schedule. Kang Dynasty's not out 2026. I gotta find.
All in the game saying any chance of Ironheart cameo given Magic versus Tech. Yeah, I think that's again, we got the lurking of Mephisto in the background, and Mephisto and Doctor Strange have a very long history with each other. So I would love to see that. So maybe, but I don't. That's when I caution someone like Cumberbatch coming into that show, just because it's almost overshadowing Riri at that point.
Absolutely. Again, obviously, if it's just a cameo or something, great. And maybe he again means that maybe we're gonna see something and we'll be like, oh, he was literally just referring to a cameo and stuff like that. So that's
Mario,
not
don't
the way.
put that out in the universe. Stop that.
What did he say? Plot twist. He's making a jump to the Sonyverse. Shoot tell. Oh gosh.
Don't do that.
That's the deal they have. Yeah, because really. Maybe I'm wrong. Someone in the chat, because I'm trying to look while I'm podcasting as well. But really, right now, 2025, am I wrong? Because right now there's Blade listed. But is there anything else in 2025 that's currently listed? Because Wars is out of there, and it's just an untitled movie. So it's just, as of right now, I don't think there is right now in 2020. Oh, sorry, F4. So I found Wikipedia, always our friend. So there's an untitled movie, there's Blade, Fantastic Four, and everyone was thinking at one point it was Spider-Man. That was the other one. But I just think it's that. So
yeah, Spub saying Raimi has one other project he's directing coming up, so he thinks he can do it.
Yeah, I think so. And I think if I remember right, I suppose I think that's like a smaller project too. So I think they'll bring him back. I think they liked working together and stuff like that. No, Deadpool's this next year now, isn't it? Isn't
Yeah,
it May? Yeah.
I think that was one of the projects that actually moved up in their dates instead of being pushed back.
Yeah, it moved up to it's May. It's like their big MC movie. That's the problem. We've had these. It's not even that everything's been delayed. It's like this was like a big shuffle between Blade, Secret Wars, Deadpool, and everything like that. And then, well, All in the Game. We might be talking about that in a second. So yeah,
yeah, exactly. Good timing on the game. So. This is coming from the Cosmic Circus as an exclusive. Armor Wars placed in the MCU slate Justin Hammer and an army of Iron Men. So, so in December 2020, if we all remember way back in pandemic, at that point, Kevin Feige talked about Armor Wars being one of their series, a six-part series adapting the storyline from the comics. Well, a lot of different format changes. Armor Wars is now a MCU film. And right now, according to their sources, the project is the next film to be released following Fantastic Four, May 2nd, 2025. That would place Armor Wars in the July 25th, 2025 date. Saying it's important to note that the writer's strike and other impending issues may force us to delay, but right now, that is what their sources are telling them. Little is known about the project outside of the simple tagline of the main character. However, we know the project. This is we being Cosmic Circus.
Yeah. Not us. We got our scoops.
Yeah. Sorry. No. We get people telling us things, but we don't get those scoops. Armor Wars is based on the storyline of the same name, and it's under, looks like the code word for the project's working title is Rigatoni. Film will adapt the comics events, antagonists taking Tony Stark's technology and repurposing it for their own. This is where we're also thinking the Power Broker will be coming back into play. This is, I think, is going to be, Damage Control holds Tony's stuff, outside of Stark Tech at that point. So we're already going to see, I believe in Secret Invasion, the Department of Damage Control is going to get stolen stuff from. I think that we got the Power Broker getting involved in this, and the idea of the antagonist being probably the return of Justin Hammer being brought in. We've got Val probably being a big part of this as well. Alliances, I pretty much guarantee Riri Williams is going to be involved in this.
Yeah. It said Riri, and then what was, I can't remember, did it list another hero or did it not list another hero?
I'm looking at right now. We also have heard potential sources of several other characters related to Iron Man. However, no confirmation could be made that they wanted to say with their stuff. But yeah, we've heard Justin Hammer. We heard rumors, but they're putting it out there. Justin Hammer is coming back for Armor Wars.
Yeah. Gwyneth Paltrow, you're getting that call. You're going to forget. I know she says she's done, but so I'll start. I have two sides of the coin here as far as like the actual movie here. I guess it kind of maybe I'm wrong. It's all one coin because I can't talk about one without being the other. I like the idea of some of this stuff. Hammer, you and I have talked about this many times. I've always been surprised this guy won an Oscar while he's been away and they haven't brought him back, right? It's just been surprising. And not even for anything. Well, sorry, they brought him back for one thing. He was in that All Hail the King special with Ben Kingsley, and he was in prison. So like that was fun. But to me,
he found his love there in prison too.
Exactly. Hopefully they come in the next movie as well. But I'm a huge Justin Hammer fan. I love Sam Rockwell in that role. So the idea of,
I agree.
I think him and Julia Louis-Dreyfus could actually have some very fun scenes together. And she's a character that hasn't really worked for me yet, but I think he would just annoy the hell out of her so much.
Oh my God. I would love for a scene just for her to put him in his place. Just like...
Oh, to me, there's like a good chance by the end of the movie she could murder Justin Hammer because he's so annoying. And I would kind of be fine to get one more. And it's a good working relationship because Rhodey and him team together in Iron Man 2, right, to take down Iron Man for a little bit. So you kind of have that, like that already a sort of rivalry bond sort of deal. And
here's another villain too, Ultron, being rumored around this as well, the return of Ultron.
I keep forgetting about that, and that's another one of Tony's tech, technically, right? It's Tony and Bruce's tech.
Tony's creating all these villains.
As always, yeah.
Even in death.
So for me, it's just I'm very curious because we've all talked about this with Flash and Ant-Man, you guys have, and whether it's on Marvel lines, DC lines, the crossover, we talk about on GV as far as like not so much the superhero fatigue, but definitely audiences are more picky now, right? And I remember when this was announced, I think we had a big conversation about like, how is this going to do as like a movie now? A series doesn't have the same expectations, but as a movie, I think when you hear stuff like Justin Hammer, Riri Williams, Ultron, and I think you'll need a couple other ones, because to me this is a thing where in a post Flash and Ant-Man world, I don't know how this movie does. I really don't know what the audience's engagement is for a War Machine movie, and that's where for me the plot of War Machine versus a bunch of different Iron Men sounds cool, but to me it doesn't, and I'm down for it because I want to see Don Cheadle get his fair shake and get his own movie. But I don't know if that sounds like a movie that a bunch of people are going to come out for. And people can go, oh, what if it's great? Doesn't matter. We see great movies all the time not do well, right? Like lots of us think, I think you and I are the same, that I loved the last Indiana Jones movie. I thought it was great too. So for me, even if I didn't think it was going to be a $1 billion movie, for the fact of it being one of Disney's biggest earners or losers, I would have not thought that. So that's where I think this movie is going to need a lot of bells and whistles. And I think even Ultron, Riri, and Sam Rockwell are still, and even Val aren't enough yet. So I could see one of those other members. Sure, you get Happy, sure, you get Pepper, but I could see some Avenger member also getting the call up, because I just don't know what this would do in this world where superhero movies are not guaranteed hits anymore,
Yeah, and especially in the sense of the action sequences, like you would have to see like a lot of people would want to see like huge fights with all these different Iron Men and all the different improvements on Tony's tech and. I mean,
which we have gotten though. Like Iron Man 3 was them versus a bunch of suits, right? That's the tough
and
thing.
that was probably one of the coolest sequences out there at that point. So kind of seeing that, but also the ramifications of what is really, this is what I wanted to get to, and relating back to Secret Invasion is what happens is what Rhodey is a Skrull when he was taken over. What's the truth behind that? Because I think that where we come out of that determines also a big place of how this movie is shaping up to be, in the sense of who Rhodey is, what's he doing at that point. It's not just protecting Tony's legacy. It's about necessarily this whole power grab in this vacuum. I mean, again, that's what the Thunderbolts are going to be about. There are no Avengers. Brent and I talked about this last week. Like, unlike the comics, the MCU doesn't have the Avengers. Even when they were together, they weren't the standing team like they are in the comics. They break up and they come together. In the comics, it's completely different. Like they'll be like, okay, a time period
they're
where
living together.
They're not there, but they've always been present. Like you said, they live together, they hang out together. Not so in the MCU. So
even though there apparently is an Avengers, though, right? Because they talked about it last week that we call them in. So I need this answer in phase in next year. I really would like to know. Hopefully, with Captain America, we get a setup. But same thing. What you're talking about, though, we've talked about this too, where this is the second lowest Marvel one, is the revelation of Rhodey being Skrull, maybe kidnapped for years. Are there going to be enough people that would see that to care? And that's the thing where I'll be very interested. Like, I think it's happening. If it's this far along, it's happening. But it's one of these that I'm going to be very curious to see. Because I would say if it wasn't this far along, they would maybe scrap it or go back to a series, and the rumor was kind of, it sounded like it needed a bigger budget. If you're doing Rhodey versus a bunch of Iron Men, probably. So this one for me, I'm curious about it, but I'm just more curious about how does this fare in a post, superhero more picky, because like we talk about Iron Man, so far all the selling points to me are Rhodey, you've seen before, Riri, she's gonna have her own show, the Skrull stuff that's in a show, Ultron's had a movie, them versus a bunch of suits. Well, like my worry is a lot of people would see this and maybe would go, I could wait for Disney Plus for this one, right? So we'll see. Maybe, but all it takes is them to announce Downey's back, and that changes. I don't think it's gonna happen, but I'm just saying that's all it takes,
Yeah, and like we said, it's superhero fatigue is coming out of not just, I can wait till it drops on whatever streamer it's part of, but also in the sense of we've got to write better stories. We've got to write stories. Yeah. The stories are what's going to be there, not just the action beats. It all can't be Fast and Furious and #family. We can't all just rely on that.
What's going to make people come out to the theaters nowadays, So, but yeah, so far it's shaping up like, as far as myself, when I take the business mind out, I'm excited for it. Lots of fun characters that I liked, and they could be all together. Ultron coming back would be great if it does happen, because I feel like we didn't do enough with him, even in Ultron, like Age of Ultron. So yeah, on paper for me, I'm happy with it.
Hey, just to hear Spader's voice again out there, I look forward to that opportunity.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah.
But all right, so that's all the news for this week. So let us get into listener feedback at that point. So we had Brent put out the Spidey signal as he's away, but we did get one question from Amari Daniels. Are there any characters in the MCU who you feel have been improved over their comic book counterparts? So You have anyone that's top of your head? Because I have one at the top of my head.
I think it's tough because there's eras, right? Because I feel like sometimes we have decades where one character is doing nothing, and then the next decade maybe a writer really likes them, and then it's like, oh man, I just love this character, I'm gonna write it. So this is a weird one to kind of say because I think she's had well written arcs before and stuff like that. But I would almost say Wanda in a sense because I feel that there's been storylines, of course, House of M, but she never had the. She's never, I think, been an A tier comic book character the way she was an A tier character when WandaVision happened and came out, and Doctor Strange, right? I think even House of M, she is the inciting incident, but that's not a Wanda story. Everyone, and like that's a disappointing thing, but it's not about, oh, how do we deal with Wanda? Wanda is the MacGuffin. She is the bomb. That's what the thing is. She sets, and that happens to her a lot. So I would say, and again, it's also backed by Elizabeth Olsen. She's a great performance, stuff like that. I think Wanda lots of times gets either just placed with Petro or Magneto, and it's, well, she's a part of the group, and that's the thing where it's like now she's a comic coming out. We've seen solo comics. There's her best stuff has been with Vision, but I would say, and I wouldn't say better because there's been eras, but I'd say like as far as someone that has become more popular, because better that's all subjective. I don't know if there's anyone that I could look at. I go, they're better than, because even then you could say something like Iron Man, but I feel like Iron Man, at times he was B level, was just a bit more of a dick. I think the MCU done a good job of giving him some more heart, but then there's been many times like Invincible Iron Man where they kind of did that. So yeah, I think I see it in the chat there. Maybe I won't say I won't say that, but I'll hold another one until you go in case it's yours. So
yeah, I do like all the games saying the Wasp said you're lying.
Yeah, yeah.
I would have to say Tony Stark, Iron Man.
Yeah. Okay, there you go. Yeah.
And just because like people say, oh, I've been a lifelong Iron Man fan, I was like, I like Tony Stark in the comics at that point, but it really, the way Robert Downey brought that character into it, I mean, that kind of changed how people wrote Tony Stark.
Yes.
To emulate it. It became a better character. Now, in a collector's market at that point, people ask me and other things like, where are all the Iron Man omnibuses? They didn't sell.
Yeah.
They don't sell. Even in this age of like a Tony Stark kind of renaissance at that point, they've been liquidated so many different times, and so Marvel Comics is very cautious, even though yes, it's a character that's had a comeback, but just it didn't sell, so they're a little bit cautious about putting him back in collected editions because of that reason.
He was a mid B character, and I really like him because I grew a love for him because they had remember they had that one season of the animated show that was running the same time as X-Men and Spider-Man, and same thing, didn't work. It got canceled. But I remember because it's either him or I can't remember, it's him or Rhodey. Oh, I think it's him. One of them are in an episode of Spider-Man animated series. It's like the Carnage Venom episode, and that's where I was like, "Who is this guy?" And then after that, I was a big fan of Invincible Iron Man. I really, really liked that back in the day. But for me, in that era, he worked best when he was on the Avengers. He worked good as a side character who was part of a team. But by himself, it's almost like he was too unlikable or not relatable enough. He was missing something that Batman had, which was at times heart. So I can agree with you with the later years that definitely gave him a little bit more in the tank. And even then, stuff like Civil War, perfect for an antagonist, because that's who he was. He always was someone that would press your buttons. He was always somebody you'd read in the comic books and be like, oh, what an asshole. I loved the asshole, and I actually was a fan of Iron Man because same thing, there's a game, Marvel Ultimate Alliance, that he always just had the coolest movesets. He was just such a cool character, variant costumes, but yeah, before the movie, he was not, as many people have said before, he was not the character he was now. So
now they're great. There's some great trade paperback epic collections with it at that point, Armor Wars and things like that, but it's just, yeah, I have to say Robert Downey kind of put that character on a different level.
Yeah, and the other one I'd say I didn't think of those. I just said I thought this because All in the Game was talking about them in a different way. Guardians of the Galaxy would be another one too, where those characters many times were just kind of around, and I never, in crossover stuff, sure, I never for a while read things that I really glommed onto them, and those are ones where not only just popularity, just I feel like they have everybody, but especially James Gunn, fleshed out all those characters a lot more than they ever had been. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So, but all right, let me pull up the Fact or Fictions from last week. So these were mine at that point. So Travis will be curious to hear what you say. In Deadpool 3, we will see variants of Deadpool and Wolverine. 78% said fact, 22% said fiction.
Yeah, I think fact, and now we've kind of seen from this week. It seems like that's happened. Now we've seen a picture of maybe another Deadpool with another
Yeah.
Deadpool and stuff like that. So it seems like now it's one of those things that it was good timing as we're getting more evidence that I think there's going to be some variant action going on in Deadpool 3 or Deadpool Wolverine is what I imagine it's going to be called. So
Yeah. Number 2, and Beyond the Spider-Verse, we will see one of the original Spider variants die. Spider-Ham, Spider-Man Noir, Penny Parker, Spider-Gwen, or Peter B. Parker.
I'm saying fiction because we talked about this on our review, and I remember I heard you guys talk about this afterward. I think it's gonna kind of be like Guardians, where all of us kept thinking who's gonna die, and then it was like, oh, no one did die. I think it's gonna be that way. I would laugh so much if they kill off Peter B. Parker, because the big thing everyone was teasing, like, oh, look at Mayday, look, they're doing what the comics can't do, making Peter happy. Wouldn't that be so funny if they kill off Peter B. Parker? And it's like movies, comics, wherever it is, Peter Parker cannot just be happy. But no,
Nope.
I'm gonna go fiction. And sorry, what was the winning one on that one?
Yeah, fiction was it 46 to 54. So.
Yeah, it's close. And I'm not saying it's for sure because I could see Peter B. Parker or Noir making a sacrifice play. But yeah, I'll say fiction. I think we're all gonna make it out. So
Yeah, number 3, if the WGA strike ends by the end of the summer and a potential SAG strike is avoided, Marvel Studios will host their own event before the end of the year to make announcements of castings and new projects. 33% said facts, 67% said fiction.
yeah, so this is where I'm the make or break on this. Would you count a Disney's Investor Day as their own thing or no?
I wouldn't necessarily it would be like kind of a gray area at that point,
Okay.
since I called out like just Marvel Studios doing something like that.
Yeah.
I could see Marvel teaming up and doing, like you said, an Investors Day kind of thing to get some stuff out there. But I just the idea of the whole idea behind the question is like I find it really hard to believe that if those two things happen, the strikes are over, the strikes are ended and averted, that they go the entire year without one kind of thing that's official coming from them by the end of the year.
That's where I say I'm fiction because I think it would just be the Investors Day. I think that's what they would do. I think the same way that in the middle of COVID, that was one of the bright spots we had was we got that great Investors Day with Pixar, Star Wars, who've lost all those projects, and Marvel, where it's just like, man, it was like 2 hours of just announcements and getting excited for what's to come. I feel like they could do that because Star Wars has some stuff now. They could talk more about the Rey movie and stuff and Mangold. Pixar, well, I don't know. Pixar, who knows what's going on with Pixar, but they could try. You know what? Actually, I take that back. That would actually help to start just once again with Pixar establishing we're a theater. These are the projects. So I would say it'd probably be Investors Day if we get something in between, because also we don't have a D23 proper this year. There's an event, but not the presentation. So I would say fiction, but if we're going to hear from them just in general, I would say fact, because I don't think they will not say anything, especially with that casting of F4, which goes back every week of like, is driver in, driver out? Who knows? It's driving me bananas, but I love it. Like I said, I know people all the time get bugged with this. I don't, because I think if you've ever watched sports, this is the free agency pool. This happens all the time in sports of some guys in, some guys out, some girls in. So it's like, it's been fun from 3 weeks to being he's locked to, oh, he's done, to everyone being like, actually, it looks like he's back in. So it's like,
hey, maybe we can thank Vanessa King for taking over what Margot Robbie walked away from.
Exactly. Yeah. So,
so number 4 coming from Jim Scroggs, Spider-Man from Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 will be in Beyond the Spider-Verse. 53% said fact, 47% said fiction.
I don't know. I'm going to go with fiction just because I feel like 3 will have variants, but I think they're going to be lesser than 2. I think 2 was the way to show off this is literally the Spider Society. Look at all these ones. I don't think 3's that. I think you will, see maybe a Toby, Andrew, Tom, but I don't think it'll be so much about the variants. I think it's now, especially if we have a team of Gwen with all the other variants combined, that's already a lot of characters. So I'll say fiction, even though I want to see it. So
yeah. And last one, coming from David, we will find out who purchased Avengers Tower in the next phase of the MCU. 86% said fact, 14% said fiction. My comment to David was, it's not going to be the next phase, but sometime next year.
It's gonna be next year, yeah. From what we've heard, yeah, I think it's going to be. It's one of those things that come out. It sounds like it's gonna be answered pretty soon with a
Mhm.
weird answer. I'm kind of surprised by it, but I'm ready for them to sell me on what's going on. So,
Yep. So, all right, you're up this week.
all right. So speaking of, so I kind of got a theme of just stuff that's been happening this week. So for this one, let's start with Secret Invasion. Talos, however you want to call his name, he will be in he'll be in the Marvels. Not old footage, new footage.
So Talos will make it out of Secret Invasion.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I am going to go fiction. I just don't think he's going to make it out. I think the way they're building his character at that point, it's almost like, man, I've seen too many shows and movies like this where you're building up a character and up against the wall, you're going to get the sympathy, you're going to get everything, and it's just unfortunately just not going to make it out. Would I like to see him? Yes. I just don't think he's long for the past Secret Invasion, so I'm fiction.
Now, as we've talked about this with Maria Hill and maybe Guy if she's dead, which I don't think so, I think there's a chance he could die and maybe you get some sort of flashback in that movie and maybe he's in there. But I'm with you where I think he will perish and I think it will be a fiction. But I had to ask because also he's a big
Yeah.
part of the first one and this Sam Jackson has said this ties into it, right? So, and I will say, if we get to the end of the series and he is alive, then I think there's actually a really good chance, even if it's just a scene. Like we did until the end credits leaked, we heard nothing about Talos being in Spider-Man: Homecoming, right? So if he's in one scene in the Marvels, they could easily hide that, and that's not. I don't think scoopers are like trying to find out is Talos in the Marvels. Like that's not going to be getting much clicks. So I'll say if he's alive, then ask me in 3 weeks, and maybe my answer would change because I think there's a chance. Who knows? He could be on that shit with Fury, but as right now, I will say fiction as well. So speaking of the Marvels, this is more not so much. It's funny because we just talked about Secret Invasion now, but this is more tying in with what I was talking about earlier with War Machine and Flash, and even this week with Indiana Jones. I'm going to ask you and the viewers stuff like that. The Marvels will make under $60 million in its opening weekend. Because we had Flash and Indiana Jones do that, right? So we've seen two big movies this year open under that. And even right now, Mission Impossible, it's tracking for 70. It could go up, but if it goes down, it's near at 60. So we've seen a lot of these bigger movies that 60 is like this nestling spot. Obviously, the first one's $1 billion, but yeah, where are you in November with this crack 60 million for just the opening weekend?
I think it'll crack 60 million just because of the idea of Marvel at that point. We haven't seen a Marvel movie at this point do
True.
just 60 in the opening, so I'm going to go with precedent and say that it will get above 60.
I think I'm fact as well, but I think I'm like a 75 or under. I think like I actually don't think it would go much higher than 60, and even then who knows if it doesn't get good word of mouth, if it's not tracking well. The other reason that's tough for November is November there's that Dune and something else. November's another tough month where there's a lot of things that maybe if people, I think Dune's the week before, maybe if people like Dune they want to go back. So I actually am I talking myself because what was it's so tough too, right? Because you want to go back and look at the newer phases like Shang-Chi and Eternals, but like they all had the COVID mix, right? Like that's the tough
I just
thing.
don't, again, I do not see a repeat of, again, the Marvels is not $1 billion movie. It's just not
No,
going to
definitely
happen.
not.
Not going to happen. Like you said, you've got now the Disney Plus idea of waiting at that point. You've got a loaded month with, like you said, with Dune. It will do above 60. Now, if you were to rephrase it saying it won't make above 100 million, you might have a case for that.
Yeah, so yeah, I think I'm definitely in that camp. I don't think
Yeah.
it'll make 100 million unless the word of mouth is very, very good. But yeah, because what? So Guardians made like it was like 120, and Strange was up there, and Ant-Man was like past 100. So I think not counting, I'd say like since No Way Home, they've all been. Let's say no. There we go. Thank you. On the game, you literally answered the question I was just about to pose out there. I will say this will be
Thank
the
you,
first one to open below 100. I'm thinking somewhere in the 70-ish million, but it wouldn't surprise me, right? Because
Yeah.
we saw that both with Flash and Indy, where they were tracking for that and it dropped. So we'll see. Miss Marvel wasn't the most watched. Captain Marvel fixed up the most loved character in movies. So
I
don't know.
just, even if you and I both know that the YouTube, the memes and everything, Red Flag saying this is what happens when Disney goes woke and Brie Larson can't shut her mouth at that point. Oh, I loathe when that happens. Absolutely, because I'm now expecting it to happen.
Oh
So,
yeah, it's gonna happen. So
yep.
finally, this is based on we were just talking about those Deadpool variants and stuff like that. So mine's a little bit of spin on that, but not really. So today, if you're not online, you saw that Deadpool's suit got out there. It's a little redder. Some additions look pretty similar, but still looks great. I'm happy with it and stuff like that. I don't know if we're gonna get to see Wolverine in a suit. That's all the rumors right now. That it's looking like the astonishing suit, all this stuff. What I'm gonna ask you, Chris, is will we see Hugh Jackman suited up in the first teaser for Deadpool? I'm not saying the whole market. I'm saying the first teaser.
Will we see the? I say we see the teaser.
Yeah. Do we see the yellow and blue, black, yellow and tan?
What I will say, I think we may not get the full suit reveal. We'll get like him suiting up, but we just get like teases of it. We don't get the full suit reveal until maybe the next one.
Yeah, I still count that. Like, if you see any parts of the suit, the mask, some blue and yellow, I'm counting that. So that you would be fact then?
I would be fact.
Okay, I'm going to go the other route. I'm going to say fiction because I think the first teaser is going to be primarily Deadpool and the end take is just going to be Hugh Jackman. And then the next trailer will be showing a lot more, maybe the suit. But even then, the end take could be him in the suit. So I could be completely wrong. I just think like you could hide that a little bit, but at the same time, they don't have to hide it because the only people that are hiding it is from us, the fan people. Like people weren't seeing Logan be like, why did he never wear the suit? They're like, oh, he has difference. Like they kind of remember, but they didn't care. So I'll say fiction, but it's not a strong fiction. But I just thought about that because that's all the word today, that he's in the suit and it looks really good. So it's going to be, and as I said, there's rumors they gave him sleeves. Thank goodness they don't need to be making this man destroy his body. Like I've always said this. He can come back. He
had a very good cheat day he posted. He had a very good cheat day and he's still looking pretty swole in his
found
arms.
out he had got sleeves. He's like, oh, I can eat like bad. No, I've always said this now. If he would ever come back, that's why you put him in a full suit because you can hide. And he's still, like Chris said, he looks great. He looks better than ever I will. But he's also an older man.
No steroids either.
Well, yeah, hopefully not. You just gotta the sleeves. You can do stuff. You can pad it a little bit, so you don't have to have Hugh Jackman eating like 12 dozen chickens and like rolling over like, oh my god, like the man deserves a break. So those are my facts and fictions.
Yep, awesome. Well, we'll post those on Sunday afternoon. Quick wrap up at the end. Brent's not here, but we were in the middle of some voting going on with our next comic book club. So you all chose the villain was Dr. Doom. So we had 4 choices, and the winner of those 4 choices is Books of Doom will be our next comic book club. 6 issues from the Black Steppes of Eastern Europe to the college campus of New York City and finally to the throne of Latveria. This is the life of Von Doom. From his earliest disasters to his scientific triumphs to the tragedy of the fractured man he would become. This is a story you know and the one you don't. So next week, we will be beginning Books of Doom #1.
There's some good stuff in that story, so I'll be interested to hear you guys break it down. I was surprised, not that Doom won, but he had such a runaway. I did give Norman one of the lone votes and stuff like that because I'm a big Norman fan. But yeah, he ran away with that. So there you go.
Yeah, Brent and I were debating, and it was debating even on the shows between Norman or Carnage getting that spot at that point. So we ended up with Norman, and sorry, Norman, you're out.
Yeah, you're out. No Storm and Norman.
Storm and Norman. So, all right. So, thank you, Travis, for stepping in this week for Brent.
Yeah.
I know Brent appreciates it and looks forward to hearing the originals that he got used to enjoying all those episodes ago.
Oh, yes. No, I was happy to step in. Like I said, I plan to here in the summer at some point jump on when all 3 of us are on so we can have some fun. But no, it's always fun to get back in here and talk about Secret Invasion, which I had, and some of these stories. So it's a good time. And as always, thanks for having me, Chris. And it's been good to do this with you again.
Of course. Well, tell people I can follow you and the new platforms they can follow you on.
Yeah, there's only one. You can either go to the GV Discord, that's where I'm in, or you can find me on Twitter and Threads at Trasby Snell on both of them and whatnot. Twitter, I'm on, but I kind of use a bit more for promotion-wise and stuff like that, and more news. So we talk about for news. Twitter's like my news scroll. I have lots of notifications. Threads, try it out. Like it so far. I got some definitely some critiques and stuff like that, but I just, it's good to have a backup because that was what happened 2 weeks ago. I don't need my rate exceeded. That's like, I need something. So that's where it is. And yeah, you can find me on there. And I'm just talking about stuff that you maybe or maybe not like.
Yep. You can follow me on Twitter at Chris Balga. I am also now on Threads at that point after a little snafu yesterday. I showed Instagram myself. I just deleted my account and started a new one at that point. I showed them. So yeah, you can follow me on Threads at Chris.Balga. follow Brent at Brentech Prime. He follow his socials at that point. He's got a nice little link that you could follow him on every single platform.
13. 13 platforms.
13 platforms. He's got a Blue Sky invite. He's on Mastodon at that point. He's got it all going on at that point. I joke with him saying, "You keep track of all those?" He says, "Yeah, some of them." You can follow me on my other show at Finest Believers, World's Finest True Believers. You can email the show at marvelalliancepodcast@gmail.com. You can follow the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network on Twitter at GUAPod Network. Feel free to tweet, email if you want to provide feedback, ask questions, fact or fictions. DMs are open on all of our stuff. Continue to rate and review the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your platforms of choice may be. And again, we want to thank our official sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com. Use that code MarvelGUA at checkout to get $2 off every single order. Thank you all for joining us in the chat. Thank you all for listening. Stay safe out there, everyone. And as Stan the Man would say, Excelsior, true believers. All right, Travis, post-credits discussion. I'm going to call this laughable sour grapes of, I'm no longer part of something, so I'm going to crud all over everything that I don't like. The Daredevil stuntman criticizes She-Hulk's bad portrayal of a hero. So Netflix's Daredevil stuntman, Chris Brewster, recently appeared on and this is a fun one, Ikuzo unscripted podcast where he called the portrayal of the character in She-Hulk bad, comparing it to a cartoon. Although Chris Brewster served as the stunt double for Charlie Cox's Matt Murdock in the 3 seasons of Netflix, he was not brought back for the character's return in She-Hulk, Echo, or Daredevil Born Again. Stuntman shares how Marvel Studios is really, really hurting Daredevil, going as far to say that She-Hulk is all animated and looks bad. He expressed saying, I love CG to enhance real movement, but if you don't have any real movement, it just becomes a cartoon. It's CG. There's no weight to it. And what always made the action Daredevil so good is it was visceral. You felt what Charlie was feeling between his performance and being in there and in the action. Says anything you saw, we really did. We had to put somebody on a wire. You needed to get some movement, but it wasn't a cartoon. It was live action. You never will match the energy. So I think She-Hulk was a massive step down for the movement goes in action. But then he says, I love Jessica Gao and company's reintroduction of Daredevil in the MCU. Huge congrats. Thanks for taking... Oh, excuse me. That's not him. That's the showrunner of Daredevil saying that to counter what he was saying. So... I'm sorry that he wasn't invited back. I'm sorry that he has this opinion of it, but he seems to forget that She-Hulk was a different type of show.
Yeah. Yeah, and I get I do understand the point of view of like if you like the more practical, like it's them on, like you said, wire work doing that. I absolutely get that, right? I think you see as a good example something like John Wick. That's why lots of people enjoy it, because they try their best to do as much stunts as practical and safety. So I do get that, but at the same time, as we always say, those aren't gone. They're still there. You can still go watch them. You can still go enjoy them. And yes, you had the Hand, you had other things, you had Luke Cage even, but he meaning Daredevil's joining a much more fantastical world, right? And I will agree with many people that you might have to use CGI to do it, but he had a flexibility to him that he didn't in the original Daredevil, which Daredevil has in the comics, the way he is moving around many times. You also probably can't even just do with a human, which it's like I like seeing as far as in the show and stuff like that. So it definitely feels a little sour grapes. It's not my career. You can do whatever you want with it. I wouldn't be making those comments, even if I felt that. It just like kind of makes you feel, other people like, why would they maybe want to work with you again and stuff like that? And he could be like, oh yeah, I talked to Charlie and he didn't know why they didn't bring me back and stuff like that. But I think it's just it's not an odd take, because I guess that's what he does. I agree with the take as far as you can like the wire work and stuff better. That's true. It's just not what they're doing right now. He's fighting a green woman and stuff,
Yeah, but we don't. My counter to that is, okay, he's commenting on She-Hulk's done at that point. How they were doing it. It was more of this of we can do this quick and get it done with CG and not necessarily have to strain it. Well, we don't know what's going to be done for Daredevil Born Again at that point. I think there's going to be some CG. To your point, it can be more fantastical, but Charlie Cox is older. It necessarily may not be able to do certain things as much. I'm not saying he's Harrison Ford at that point, but if Charlie Cox wants to do it, they're going to allow him to do it. Great, but we'll have to see exactly. I agree with you. He does have points, but it just comes out as it's it just like
What
saying, ugh.
what I push back about is they're destroying the character. That's where I go. And also too, like he's like, oh, I've heard Echo's off, all this stuff. It could be. We've had these theories, right? Of like, why are they dumping everything like that? But I would. He was in 1 and like 0.5 episodes of She-Hulk. Not really, right? So for me, it's one of these things where wait till you see everything, right? I imagine in Daredevil Born Again, he is going to have some physical stuff. So when he was fighting She-Hulk, when she throws him off a building, there wasn't a way to do it that way. So that's where it's like for me, that's where you start to lose credibility. Where I get where you're going with, but you start to go, oh, they're destroying the character. No, it's just another version of this character that they're doing this way. Wait till the whole show comes out and goes from there, because he's going to look really silly, and I think he already does. But if the Daredevil Born Again comes out and most people still love it, you kind of go, okay, sure, there's some CG in there. I get that. But at the end of the day, to me, I love seeing Daredevil fight. I love the action scenes, but as usual, it comes down to the character and stuff. That comes down to Charlie Cox and the writing of the character, So,
And I hear he's a really good lawyer.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
but all right, we'll check you all next week, and Brendan will be back. So see you for episode 4 of Secret Invasion. Bye-bye.
See ya.